Hey, I'm Stephanie, and this is Dirty Money Talk, where I interview my favorite entrepreneurs and influencers to help release the stigma of discussing the F word, finances, baby. Let's do this. On behalf of Dirty Money Talk podcast, I am your girl, Stephanie Arrington. And this is No Mike Dale, week number 2.
What? You can't hear me again? Well, what's up with that? I think y'all faded me out, production. All right, Dale, Walton in the house.
Well, let's get started with this week's Black Wall Street update. Dale, what came across your timeline this week?
Well, Steph, I got a question for you. I'm gonna start this just real quick question for my illustrious host over here, the creator, the maker, what she does, you know.
The architect, baby.
The architect of this whole dirty money thing. What is, and I just want you to straight answer the first thing coming to your mind.
Okay.
What is the appropriate time for you to retire?
Me personally.
Personally.
I need a few milli. Because see, I'm gonna retire soon. So yeah, I need a few $1 million.
Okay, a few million. So give me a number though. You're gonna give me
a real number?
Yeah, a real number.
I would like to say I need about 4.29 million.
4.29 million. Okay, now, that's a real number for real. Okay, so recently, according to Wall Street, they did a survey and they asked people what was their appropriate time to retire. And it's interesting you said a number because that's what came up in the survey. They gave a number, not an age. They gave a number. So it's very interesting you came up with that because most people say, 65, you know, maybe I work till I'm 70. But you gave a number. See, so that's how you think. You think like, you know,
you're right.
Rich people think. So the number that they gave on average on the survey came up to $1.9 million.
Oh, I just pulled my number out the air. How'd they come up with 1.9 million?
I don't know, but that was just the number they gave, you know? But if you were to retire tomorrow, question, do you think you could retire from $1.9 million? With your bills being the same and calculating that they'll be paid off or whatever time they'll be paid off according to now. What do you think that you could live off of 1.9 million?
In general, if I knew that was all I have, like with nothing else coming, possibly, I can make that work. I can make that work. And I say that I can make it work because I was raised in struggle economics. I know how I could make 1.9 last until we hit the funeral home. I think I could.
You know, I always thought that my number was 3 million.
Why?
I always thought it was 3 because I always had an ideal that I wanted to live off the interest. You know, I wanted to live off the interest, right? And now I'm going to say this is back then. This is a long time ago, right? So we talking about over a decade ago when I was thinking about this. Back then, when the saving interest rates were decent, right? Not the shitty rates that you get now, you know what I'm saying, the savings account. But I mean, when it was giving 3 and 4%, you know, on the savings, I thought that I could, if I got 3 million in the bank, I would make about 16 to 20,000 a month off of 3 million. That's what I would get in interest. And I thought I could live off of $20,000 a month, easy. Even with a mortgage and a car payment, I could live off $20,000 a month. And I said, yeah, so 3 million, that's my number. I'm not sure nowadays though. And that's the problem with trying to project things like this, is you don't know what's going to happen. You know, you don't know what's going to be like 20 years down the road. Price of gas, inflation, you know, like I said, rates, like your bank rates, what they're going to be. So now I think I'm kind of changing that number just a little bit, slightly, because if the rates stay the way they are right now, I wouldn't be able to live off the interest like I thought. I'll be able to live off the money. But my plan was to have enough in there to live off the interest.
Okay. The topic of student loan debt came across my timeline. The title of the article is "College Was Supposed to Close the Wealth Gap for Black Americans, and the Opposite Happened." Mm-hmm. A lot more African American and Black households have college attendees now than they did maybe 20, 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. However, the burden of student loan debt is leaving a lot of them cash poor and possibly not living independently. I can see this from a couple of different points of view, in that I am a college graduate, and I also now have kids who are college graduates, and I can see the changes from the 90s versus the 2010s.
The interesting thing about that is, at some point, the way it's structured now, you end up paying college twice. You end up paying your college loan back and your kids' tuition at the same time. The way it goes, you know what I'm saying? But I will say this, that it has not really bridged the gap truly, because it's all contingent. The whole college thing period is contingent on you getting a good paying job. That's the intention of college.
That part.
That's the intention of college. You're supposed to go to college, 4-year degree or 8-year master's degree, whatever. And you're supposed to come out with a good job right out the bag. And we're starting to realize that that's just simply not the case all the time. I mean, you got stuff that happens like this, with COVID situation, kids coming out of that school at that time were effed. Coming out the year before that were effed. Okay, when the housing crash happened,
oh my goodness,
came out when you were coming out when 9/11 happened. You know what I'm saying? It's just bad times. It's bad timing, and there's nothing you can do about it. You got to suck it up and just let that debt build up, and then see if there's some way you can kind of fix it over the years. Because usually people are not in a position to, take care of their student debt within 3 years of leaving college. It's just not. It's usually so high. Absolutely.
It's interesting to know that I have peers who are still paying for loans that they used for housing and meal plans. Y'all, folks still paying for a bed, a twin bed that they slept on, and food that they ate in the cafeteria.
Not even in comfort.
To this day, what do you think can be done going forward in terms of financial literacy? Like, how do we empower our rising juniors and seniors in high school to make better decisions? I know a lot of them get caught up in I want to go to this school, I want to live in this city, I want to do these type of activities. But in terms of the education, you can pretty much obtain that information in a variety of different ways these days. Before the information age, you couldn't take an entire course online. The information can be provided to you from the professor who's the best lecturer and the most expert in this topic or this field. You can get that information captured digitally and share it to millions and millions of people instantly. Let's say that they had these college, classes held on Facebook or some other, widespread platform like a YouTube or just the possibilities are endless. So the traditional college experience seems that it should decline in value monetarily. If I can get all of the education piece somewhere else, like if if MIT suddenly makes their, course loads available online for free, and I can get an MIT level education because I'm a good self-study person, what are we paying for? What are your thoughts on that?
Right. Well, okay, so I think that the bachelor degree is still there, but I think the advanced study, that's where you coming in, takes care of that extra, because that advanced information is available for you to gather without paying these elaborate tuitions and board and all that stuff. So the bachelor degree, unfortunately, still and I'm not saying, let me not say unfortunately, but let me say that it still holds value because the federal sector still wants it. Why they still want it is because it takes them a long time to change their ways. You know what I'm saying?
Really?
So yeah, it takes them a long time. So they still want. There's still a lot of federal jobs that require you have particular degrees in order to even be eligible to apply for the job. If you go on USA Jobs, you'll see some of those bachelor degrees are required. They're still required, and particularly if you get up to the higher levels and stuff like that. But on the flip side of that, a lot of private sectors are not looking for degrees anymore.
Right.
They're not looking for degrees because they're starting to realize that hey, this experience that you actually had hands-on for 10 years is more than this guy coming out of school for 4 years and never ever touched the system, or never ever touched a document, or never had to calculate a budget or do accounting for a whole organization.
Right.
So that's you're starting to see the flip, and even financial wise. I remember back in the 9/11 days when we had to go and do job fairs. That's back when the jobs were scarce, and we had to do job fairs. So even on that job fair line, there were PhDs right behind me.
Right.
There was a master's degree right in front of me. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, what are you guys doing here? And they made a very interesting point back then. This is back in 2001, 2002. Okay. They said, well, when they see our degrees, they get scared. They know they're going to have to pay. And, when it comes down to private companies, the bottom line is the dollar. How much money's going out. So if they see somebody with a PhD and, 3 masters, they're like, uh-oh, we're not going to be able to afford that one. But they'll see somebody over here and say, okay, this guy looks good. Look like you still got the experience, probably about $30,000 less, This
is probably why my application keeps getting rejected at Target. And I'm mad about it because y'all don't know me like that. You don't know what I'm looking for in my life. You don't know me.
It's back to your original topic. School really hasn't bridged that gap as much as it was intended.
As a whole, we're more educated, but I don't necessarily think that is helping to align financially, because you still have the systemic obstacles in your path of possibly somebody who is anti-Black person, anti-Black, anti-brown, anti-anything but the status quo. They are the ones that are making the hiring decisions. And once you get hired, these are the people who are evaluating your performance and making determinations about what type of bonus you're entitled to and what type of longevity you're going to have in your career.
Yes, I agree.
Well, that's the Black Wall Street update for your ass. Today's featured guest in our entrepreneur series is Mr. Chad N. Clinton of CNC Entertainment. Chad is the DC native, and he is a serial entrepreneur. He had a conversation with me about motivation versus inspiration. And what I took from the conversation was actually inspirational versus motivation. And what he was basically saying is like, I strive to be inspirational because motivation is fleeting. You might be motivated to do something one day and the next week you don't feel like doing it. But when you're inspired to do something, it's kind of like, you know, a different type of spark. So without further ado, let me bring in my guy, Mr. Chad Clinton. Good evening, Chad.
Hey,
Chad
hey.
Clinton, everybody. How are you this evening?
Oh, I am wonderful. Thank you both for having me on. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I appreciate you both.
For sure, for sure.
Welcome.
Well, my name is Chad Clinton, born and raised in Washington, D.C. Went to Archbishop Carroll for high school and then went to Howard University, got my degree in broadcast journalism. I was in media for a while, worked at NBC, transitioned from NBC into more print journalism, where I was at Dow Jones and the Wall Street Journal for 10 years before kind of transitioning more into PR. And from there, I kind of had that itch of wanting to do my own thing, you know, own my own. And, you know, it's just so much that I was able to learn in the business world and how money works and certain mindsets and things that really impacted my community, my culture, and wanted to be able to, you know, have the opportunity to, you know, leverage these different lessons that I learned and kind of own my own and be able to give back. So, you know, in a nutshell, that's just kind of, you know, who I am as a person. I'm a single father, you know, raised in, you know, a single parent household, love my mom very dearly. And, you know, I've always just wanted to, you know, be a man that did the right thing by the people who, you know, I loved and cared for.
You know, again, we're going to get into like kind of a little nitty gritty. We ain't going to roast you just yet,
Absolutely.
but you know, you will be on the hot seat before we end our discussion tonight.
Bring it on. Bring it on.
All right. So what have you been working on the last few years, and give us some high level stuff and where are we today? What are you working on?
Sure. Well, you know, a couple things. Been in the workforce, you know, in PR at a director level for a while. I recently, you know, kind of made the decision to, you know, to move away from that. You know, the corporate world is it's great for a lot of people, but I'm one who always believes I think it's really important for us to, you know, own our own, to have something of our own. I think that it's important to not be in a position where, you know, one entity can pull the rug from beneath your feet and then you have nothing. You know, I'm extremely big on diversification of funds and, you know, being in a position where you have more than one legitimate and real source of income. So, you know, I started company CNC Entertainment, which is a boxing promotion company and a professional boxing promotion company. And, you know, Stephanie, you know very well, we started from, you know, the very concept stage. And now we're in a position where, you know, shows are being done, we're growing. You know, television is coming very soon. We're doing some of the best shows in the Washington, D.C. area. So I'm really excited about it. You know, separate from that, you know, I'm also involved in real estate as well as, you know, the stock market. So just kind of positioning myself to have multiple streams of resources to be able to take care of my family and myself.
Okay, let's get a little bit deeper into CNC Entertainment.
You know, my product is professional boxing. I want people to know that they're going to see high level, competitive, entertaining, engaging, and most importantly, family friendly, you know, event where you can, you know, bring your kids if you want to, or it can be a date night, or, you know, if you're a dude, you can go and just hang out and relax with your homies. If you're a young lady, you can just your girls and you all can hang out. But overall, I want people to know that they can come to a high level, very safe, you know, experience with our boxing shows. And we try to always, you know, under promise and over deliver. Like the last show that we did, you know, 2 weeks before the show was supposed to happen, we announced kind of like a breaking news type of deal where Tiara Brown, who is a very, very well known police officer and high-level professional boxer who was under the promotional banner and management banner of Lou DiBella. He works with Al Heyman and the PBC brand and Showtime. And so, we had Tierra headline our show and nobody was expecting that. And that just added an additional level of credibility to the quality of events that we did. And it was amazing. And we were really on the fast path to stardom with what we were doing. But as so many other businesses and individuals, experience, COVID was in the way. We're just now kind of in a position where Virginia is reopening. And so, we have a show scheduled for September the 25th. That's going to be amazing. Looking forward to it. It's going to be the biggest and best show that we've done yet.
Chad, can you let our 3.5 audience members know how they can find you on Instagram and Facebook?
Yes, definitely. For Instagram, you can follow me at CNC _ENT. And on Facebook, it is the same thing. CNC _ENT, and also on Twitter, I try to keep everything very, uniform. You never know, who's going to be in a position to help you, who's going to be in a position to be, influential in your life. And, it's really important, especially in the, entertainment and somewhat hospitality business that we're in, to be able to engage and have first person relationships with your audience, with fans, attendees, because loyalty is two ways. It's not just one.
As you have been apprised, we have a hot seat. So
absolutely, bring it on.
Flame it.
I'm gonna kick it off this week. I ain't gonna hide behind Dale. All right, I'm gonna kick it off. All right. So question number one: what is your earliest memory of money? Let's talk about that.
My first real experience with understanding money and being introduced to it was through my grandfather, who, was my biggest role model in my life. He, kind of taught me, what it was like to be a man, and, just those old school values are things that resonate with me to this day. And he passed when I was 10 years old, but he really helped me to identify my goals and wanted me to be in a position where working for other people was something that he wanted to be a choice and not a necessity for me. He wanted me to understand that there were more options for us, for people of color. Back during those early 80s, when we were during our most influential, stages of life, our parents and our elders and the people that we looked up to, the adults in our lives, were of the working nature. They were 9 to 5, and that was what was embedded in our systems, because that was what was, that was the thing, for Black folks, get your job, and they called it, well, I call it today the 40-40-40 plan. Work 40 hours a day for 40 years of your life, and then you retire with about 40% of your earned income in retirement.
That's about
right.
And
but it's the truth. It really is the truth. Like, that was what it was. And think about it. Most people, and if it wasn't your family, tell the truth, shame the devil. If it wasn't your family, it was people close to you. They either worked in the government, for the postal service, Metro. That was that was it. It was systemic. And people like us during those times, the young folks our age and our cultures weren't taught these other ways of generating income.
We were taught this, but we were taught this within the framework of crack era DC.
Well, absolutely.
We had some very enterprising individuals that rose from the ashes, baby. Okay, so
absolutely. In terms of, things that would lead to generational legacy wealth for
Yeah.
our people, those things weren't really taught.
Oh no.
And because our parents didn't have it, a lot of this is systemic. And
Yep.
so for me, I started getting an understanding of these things at a very, very, very early age. And I don't, and this is a big disclaimer, because I don't want anybody to think that I'm anti-job. I would love to see our people position ourselves to not just have one source of income, because that in and of itself is its own death trap. I'm so glad, Steph, that you said, the hustle that we had and the hustle that we were taught, and you put it into a rental property, and you figure out, that these rental properties appreciate over time and in significant and intrinsic value. You're paying off a mortgage with somebody else's money, and then you're positioning yourself where, God forbid, you lose your job, you got at least something to fall back on that's going to keep you from being in a position where you are destitute. And the reality is, we have the biggest spending economy in the world, of any race, of any nationality. We are the biggest spenders of everybody. We just have so much talent, so much creativity. We are so intelligent, even though the world tries to keep us down, but we continue, to show what we can do if we could just kind of come together and start putting some of these principles together in more of a collective manner, so that we as individuals and then we collectively can start to, support one another. We can start to grow. It's up to us individually to break these cycles, to break these chains, by understanding different, by understanding, again, how money is being made. And, I understand that this is called dirty money talk, but for me, before we get into the money, I think the most important element here is to position ourselves where we start talking about mindset. When we start preparing ourselves mentally to understand what we can do.
What did your parents, your guardians, teach you about money?
My grandfather was, again, my male role model growing up. And, while he worked and took care of family and just was all man in every sense of the word, my mom, who sacrificed or struggled so that I could be in private school from the 4th grade on, had more of a worker's mentality, not a business mentality. And it's funny because we talk about this to this day. I have always kind of had an entrepreneurial spirit. My mom, fearful, always pushing, keep a job, that biweekly check, that those health benefits, all of these different things. I'm simply saying, I think that it is just so valuable to understand all of your options and to be in a position where you can make choices.
To recap, your parents and your guardians taught you
to work.
Okay. All right. Well, while I get my seasonings together, I think Dale gonna handle question number 3.
Go ahead,
Dave. Chad, what was, and since you're a mover shaker, I'm sure you got some very interesting answers to this question. What was your biggest money mishap that you can discuss, that you don't mind discussing with us?
Look, at this point, transparency, I think, is really important. Reality is that I got greedy. I got super greedy. $125,000 purchase, $175,000 into it. I made great money, sold it for $750,000. You couldn't tell me nothing, on top of the fact I'm making $120,000 a year. And I had 2 rental properties, 1660 Gale Street, which is even though it's called old school, but it's considered Capitol Hill, and then 4525 Edson Place in Deanwood, or both of them with 3-bedroom homes that I owned and was making great money. I was clearing about maybe $2,200 clearing, netting about $2,200. I just flipped this property and made all of this money. I'm making great money at the job. My goal was within, and this was before I was 25 years old. My goal at that particular point was, there ain't no way I'm working past 28.
You was gonna retire at 28.
I was
Hey, the way you was going, yeah, you was definitely on track for that.
That was it. And the reality
about 10 million by then.
All of that money was legal, legit money that stemmed from a hustle mindset that, you know, was cultivated by my grandfather's thought processes, you know, 18 to 20 years prior. And so, you know, for me, that was the thing. Now, the mistake, to your point, the mistake, I just wanted to provide context, but the mistake was, you know, I also learned through real estate and education, you know, spend other people's money, not your own. Boom. And so, you know, for me, I didn't do partnerships. And though I was making great money, my vision, my goals got bigger. So now I'm looking at $1 million properties and things of that nature. But I didn't have that kind of money to get into it. And then the money I had, I didn't really want to spend it. So one of the things I did was I used my 2 rental properties as collateral assignment instead of putting up cash. And I worked with a private lender. Right. And so, you know, he leveraged my experience, he leveraged my knowledge. I made all of this great money, you know, so my projects were essentially my real estate resume. I bought 2 properties. My son was just born, and, you know, I named this 4-unit condo project after him. His middle name is Curtis. His first name is Chad. And so I named it Curtis Park Condominium. Right. And I did really well with that. But also with that, the lender allowed me to purchase this other project by Howard University, and that was going to be my legacy project. All in, I was in that for $5 million. Right. That project.
You wasn't even 30 yet.
No, I wasn't 30 yet. That project folded because that's when the market changed, right? This was, you know, this was 07, 08 time frame when the market real estate market just, tanked. I mean, totally folded. Like, that project put me in a position where, I mean, I was just done. Like, I was done. Seriously, I had no alternative but to walk away from the project because the project was worth less than, like, the project was worth maybe 60% of what I had into it. Then I had an issue with my contractor because at that point I was really big on us just working with us, right? And so my contractor kind of did some things that was a little shady, and it put my project in a bad way. It was in a historic district right on First Street, right off of Florida Avenue.
Oh, wow.
And in the Leroy Park area, right? Okay. And I basically I bought this big historic Victorian home, and it conveyed with a vacant lot. That vacant lot was zoned to be built upon, right? So my goal was to turn that Victorian and build that vacant lot and create 8 luxury condos, and the top 2 were going to be duplexes. And I ordered Italian kitchens. Forget, you know, going to Home Depot or Sears or any place else. I mean, this was going to be the top of the top. And the top 2 units, I'd already started pre-sales. I was going to put them on the market for $2.5 million each. And that's just the top 2. And but when the project stopped, and because the money that I was borrowing was basically hard money, I was paying interest only. And I was paying about $80,000 a month, interest only. So I was just in that position. I gambled, and I lost real big. and I had to make an executive decision. I had to walk away from the project, which consequently, keep in mind what I told you. I had 2 rental properties that were used as collateral assignment. They could not take my rental properties, but what they could do and what they did was they put a lien on both of those properties, preventing me from ever being able to sell them or do anything really with them. Right. So, again, fortunately, I went from positioning myself to having all of this money. And then also, as a side note, Dow Jones got bought out by News Corp and Rupert Murdoch. And at that time, I could not afford to relocate to New York, which is where the job was. So now I'm out in the job market.
This all happened at the same time?
At the same time.
Wow.
Yeah, all happened right at the same time. So you go from making, and it was a reason why I specifically, explained the money that I was making, right? Because now you lose $120,000 a year salary. Now you lose that $2,000 a month or $2,200 a month that you're clearing in rental properties, and you lose the value that the equity that you had in your properties, right? And so,
and you said you just had a baby.
Just had a baby. So that was in private school. So
when it rains,
I had my son in Montessori daycare at 4 months old. So I'm paying stupid money for that. So, all kinds of things happen at once. Okay. So, the one thing, so the end result of that was I ended up walking away from the project, essentially having to walk away from my rental properties as well. My real estate business pretty much at that point all the way folded. And my only recourse, because I had these big money lenders coming at me. So not only did I lose all of these things, but now they like, look, we still have money tied into this. We coming after you and your personal assets, my home, all these other things, my private personal home, right? So my only recourse was to file bankruptcy at that particular point, which is what I did. And, I had a lawyer because I ended up all my reserves, everything, because I ended up paying maybe 3 months out of pocket that $80,000, which was just one of the stupid things I did, because I actually thought that it would be rectified. That's why I did it.
Oh,
had I known that it wasn't gonna happen, I wouldn't have. I mean, come on, that's $240,000, right? So I'm spending money that I had saved to keep things going, and I did that for 3 months. Once I realized I was done, I had to walk. And so I paid, I had a lawyer to represent me, and he's a good friend of mine. Had a lawyer to represent me through my bankruptcy and everything. And I ran out of money. And he continued to fight for me. And I mean, I'll never forget that to this day. Like I'm so appreciative of that, because we're talking about saving my lifeline, years of debt, years of trials and tribulations that I probably would still not be out of had he not continued to fight for me the way that he did. So I mean, that was the biggest mistake that I made, and the stimulus behind that was greed, was not doing proper due diligence, was just being young, being overly aggressive without the proper education and the mindset behind it, and that leads
and guidance
and well, guidance.
I mean, even if it wasn't coming from your guardian or your parent, but to have a business mentor.
But see, that's the thing. I'm transparent and I own my own stuff, right? So it's not as if during the course of these 5 or so years where I was heavily in business, that I didn't come across experienced, sharp investors and people who had done really well in business that liked me and saw my potential and, you know, told me different things. But and when I'm making this kind of bread without you and you telling me to do something or move differently, it don't carry a whole lot of weight with me at that point.
Yeah, right.
And so that leads me to, you know, a couple things that I think is really important for your audience to understand. I think there are a couple different ways to be when it comes to growth. There's different levels of business intelligence that I think is really important. It's those who can learn from the mistakes that they make. It's those who can, and then it's those that can learn from the mistakes that others make so that you don't do it yourself. And I think I lacked that optimal area of you know, being humble and of business intellect, because even though you're successful, that's when you're supposed to double down and learn the most to go to those next levels. And this transcends real estate. This is in any business venture. This is in any area of entrepreneurship that you choose to venture into. You know, it's really, and I see it so often in our, God, I see it so often in our culture is that we don't want to hear anything anybody else has to say, especially those who have done more than us. Those are the people that we really want to aspire to be around. But we got to know when to move and how to move.
Discernment, my brother. That's right.
Oh, no doubt. But you know, I'm building CNC on this pillar. You know, is that there are two ways to have the biggest building on the block. You can either tear someone else's down to make yours look bigger, or you could just build the biggest. Period. Point blank. I have a standard. You know, though I'm humble, I believe that, you know, I know what is good quality, and you know, I go out to try to make sure that our audience has the best experience that they can have. And, you know, I'm gonna be really honest on, you know, my event is September the 25th. On that same day, there's another event that's happening earlier in the day. I am actually ecstatic that that is happening because the people who go to that event versus the people who come to our event, it's absolutely going to be buzz and talk, word of mouth in our community. If we don't do nothing else, we run our mouths, right? So, you know, you're gonna hear the difference. I mean, I'm not gonna even go into all of the details to self-promote. I'm just going to, you know, let the flyer, let the information, let the promotion speak for itself. And, you know, for others that see the other promotion and go to that event, it's just going to be a night and day difference. You know, again, it goes back to that, what are you aspiring to be? I want my shows, and I'm modeling my shows after those that you see on television with those huge, tremendous budgets. And I not only want to be as good, but I strive to be better and more unique in the way in which we do our events, right? So and you know, the goal is, you know, and it's funny, and I'm glad this show is happening right now, and I'm speaking about it right now because we're in the growth phase. I have not arrived yet. The company has not arrived yet. I believe that I have the best product, and, you know, we're going to put together the best events. And, you know, things that we struggle for now, like, you know, working with certain boxers and all of these different things. I promise you, after this show and maybe the next show, it'll be the opposite. Now everybody will be coming to us because now we have consistency in place and we have a business model that people are going to see and they're going to love it and want to be a part of. That's how it always goes. It always goes. It's the same people that's talking about you in a negative way and trying to keep people from seeing you that will privately reach out to you and want to get with you.
Can you give us the exact date, time, and location so that, and we are going to promote your flyer right here within our show, but I want you to just give it to them in a narrative form. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. So, you know, the show, the World Championship Series of Boxing, which is being co-promoted by myself, my company, CNC Entertainment and Ponytail Promotions, will be Saturday, September the 25th at the Dulles Sportsplex in Sterling, Virginia. For ticket information, you can actually go to the company website. And as soon as you click on the company website, the flyer will actually pop up. And then if you click on the flyer through there, it'll take you to the ticket site. So you can go to cnc-ent.com for ticket details and also just to learn more about the company. Not only are we for profit, but we're also extremely big in the community. While there are tons of different causes that are worthy of being promoted and worthy of attention, something that was very near and dear to me as the founder of the company is anti-bullying within urban areas of the Washington metropolitan area. There've been so many cases, and oftentimes it goes underreported, but there've been so many cases of kids, and I'm talking about kids, 12 and under, who have been bullied to a point where they have committed suicide or really harmed themselves. Felt like there was no other way out. And so, being with professional boxers and we have a great relationship with the famed Russell family out of the Washington DC area. Gary Russell is the WBC featherweight champion of the world. His father, Big Gary, all of them, by the way, are named Gary Russell. It's a ton of them, but 3 of them fight. Another brother is the second trainer, and Big Gary is the trainer and manager for all of them. And just a very quick shout out to anybody that's watching. Hopefully you guys can watch Antonio, who's the middle brother, fight for the WBA interim championship this Saturday on Showtime at 10 p.m. Just having relationship with those people, and they've supported our events, and they're big on anti-bullying as
Absolutely.
well. And so just if any of the anything that we do can help save one kid, or at least provide some sort of support for adults around to be a bit more active in these kids' lives, to understand different things that are going on, whether it's parents, whether it's teachers, whether you're in a program and the bullying is taking place and you're running the program or what have you, just to be a bit more in tune to things that are going on, because this is life-changing, life-threatening, and life-taking for a lot of these kids. So that's really important. So we want to give back to the community in that way, and be able to have that kind of a positive impact, in addition to positioning ourselves to do well in the sport and business of boxing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I mean, you promote that positivity within the community, and you actually walk it like you talk it. So
that's right. Absolutely.
But you still on this hot seat. You still on this hot seat. You're not done.
Hey, I'm with it. I'm with it.
I'm gonna hide behind Dale, so go ahead and give it to him, Dale.
Right. So Chad, last but not least, and this is a funny, interesting, could go anywhere type question.
Okay.
If you got one shot, Terminator style, you can go back into the past and talk to your younger self. What advice would you give your younger self about money? Let me say that about money.
I alluded to it. For me, I would have been more in tune to the value of taking my time and making sure that each and every project that I did in real estate at that particular point was purposeful, that I wasn't just chasing the dollar, that I was actually more focused on the process of doing good business. Because that's really what happened when I got started. It was a plan. It was a goal, and it just happened for me much faster than I mentally, emotionally, and was mature enough to be able to appreciate and handle. And so I would have really told my younger self to be far more in tune to the things that my mentor said, to trust my mentors to be a bit more discerning in how I was doing business, to be very humble, to understand that money, can come and go, and that doing things the right way is the most important element in business. But, it's different because on the East and the West Coast, price points are so expensive that the value for real estate investing is really challenging unless you're buying things off market or you're super, super plugged in and you're getting deals that no one else is aware of. So, that leads me to looking at, Midwest and now South and in other places where there's so much opportunity, but you have to know what you're doing. You have to be connected to the right people, building the right team, and not rushing to do it. I started investing in Minneapolis. I fell in love with the city of Minneapolis, to be
Wow.
honest. Not so much because I didn't necessarily want to live there, but it was definitely a place that I could spend a ton of time. And, I loved it. I built a good team, and it took me about a year and a half to 2 years of patient, due diligence and going back and forth, visiting, sitting down with people, looking them in their eyes, spending a little bit of resources to do what I needed to do and not jumping in haphazard. And so, I started purchasing there, and it was, going actually really well. I just made a very personal decision after the George Floyd situation and the Philando Castile first, when he was shot by the police there. That sent major red flags, but that was one event, and I was like, okay. But then when it happened again with George Floyd in the same public light, that was it. I didn't want to do business there. I didn't want to pay taxes that, the city government would be able to use to fund police activities that were taking place. So I liquidated and totally got out of business in Minneapolis. And so now I'm in position where I'm looking in other areas, but I'm not going to jump in just for the sake of jumping in. I'm going to use the same, tactful,
Same process,
due diligence, and just not rush it, because I don't want to make mistakes that's going to take years to rebound from. Now, things can happen because it's business, and I want everybody to know this. If you choose to get involved in business or any type of entrepreneurship, understand that you sow your seeds before you reap your harvest. You have to invest in yourself and invest in your business before you can expect to receive a return on your investment. It's not an overnight thing. This is real. It is very simple. Let me be really clear. Business is not, it's not hard. It's simple, but it's not easy. It requires a lot of effort. It requires a lot of commitment, a lot of attention to detail, and it does require some resources, whether it be your own or whether it be, developing partners to put you in position to help you, where maybe you're bringing, a knowledge base, and they may have resources where, you can collaborate and, make some money together until you get to a point where you can just go out and totally do your own thing. If there is a will, there's a way. It's no doubt about that. But you have to be committed enough to do it. You have to be patient enough to make sure you know exactly what you're doing. So those are kind of the lessons and the elements that I would really, harp on, for anybody who's interested. And again, when going back to what I originally said, we're not anti-job. I just believe that it's so important for people to position themselves to have more than one source or one stream of income in their lives. It is no longer just a luxury. It is becoming a necessity. So, we got to have additional sources of income.
Absolutely. Definitely. As one thing I've often said to my clients and some of our two and a half followers, I've always said, if you don't learn how to make money in your sleep, you're going to die at your desk.
There it is. There it is. I mean, and like I said, I really want the 40-40-40 club to catch on, because when you really think about it,
I would love to see a resurgence of trade schools, even if that's, that could be anything from plumbing, HVAC, even cosmetology, things that you can actually do with your hands yourself. And they pay better than most entry-level corporate jobs.
That is a show in and of itself. I just encourage everybody who listens to, identify something that they love, that they're passionate about, identify a need in their area or community that they believe that they can fill, and find a way to monetize. Just position yourself to have something other than just your 9 to 5 biweekly, because if that's all you do, that's all you'll have. And it won't love you back. We'll get up sick in the snow and go to work, but we won't spend the time and effort to invest in our own goals and dreams. And so, it's just that mindset that I really want to help, us to break that chain, that cycle, that understanding. And ideally, I would love for our community to do better with supporting each other. But in the absence of that, let's make people believers by doing good business and educating and teaching the right way and putting people on a path to just having more. And, the better you do, you'll start to see people come around. That's how it always goes. So that's why I relish, CNC being in the position that it's in, so, that's all I have for you guys.
Well, listen, just to piggyback on your crabs in a barrel analogy. So what I'm hearing on the other side of your conversation is that if we actually spoke to these crabs in this barrel and we got them to unify and realize the benefits of unification, they could ultimately pull themselves out of the pot and go after the person who put them in there in the first place and reap whatever benefits you were entitled to.
The one adjustment I would have to that, I think, yes, short answer, absolutely. But I think there's a step that has to take place before we get to that point. That's the result. That's the goal, what you just spoke to. But before you get there, and what tends to be the problem is, how do you start that? How do you get to that point? And so for me, I think this conversation that we're having now answers that question. It is, knowing and understanding that those crabs in the barrel exist, that you're going to have those detractors, those people who, don't want to see you excel because they can't do what you're trying to do. And they are fearful, or they just don't have it in them to go out and do it on their own. And so that's what puts you in that special category when you make that choice to want to go and do that for yourself, where you have a vision and that you see beyond what other people can do. I call it, the idea between inspiration and motivation. Most people use that interchangeably and they don't understand that there really is a difference. Motivation is doing something in the mood in which you set it in. Inspiration is doing something past the point of the mood in which you set it, right? So there's a big difference between the two. For those that have a vision, even when you're not being successful, even when people aren't supporting you, you come up with this great idea and you start putting it into play, but you don't have the support for it that you want, right? When you're motivated, you typically will quit at that point. But when you're inspired, you don't allow that temporary setback, that lack of initial support, to be the reason why you don't succeed. You continue to push beyond and past that. And eventually you'll start to, especially if you're putting it, and the key is you have to have a good product. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. You can't put some inferior BS out. You absolutely have to have a good product. And if you do, eventually you will get it in the hands of people that will see it, appreciate it, and will ultimately support it. And very slowly, you'll start to have success and it'll pick up steam. And then the snowball effect will kick in, when now what we do best, which is run our mouths and talk, will start to have the impact that you want it to have for you. Now the whole word of mouth. Now somebody can say something to somebody else, and then it's supporting you, right? Now you're starting to have, that trickle down effect, and your business is starting to move and shake a little bit. And then that's when, you start to have all these detractors now got their eyes open, they in your face. And then, privately, they reaching out to you trying to see how they can get with you. Right. And that's just how it always goes.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, we could definitely start a whole nother episode, and we do plan to have you back. So
absolutely.
First and foremost, I definitely want to thank you for coming, hanging out with Dale and I tonight and sharing all of the best parts of the Chad Clinton story that we can promote on our show. But we definitely are looking forward to seeing you on September 25th.
No question.
We'll be in Sterling on site, live and direct, although I will be wearing my CNC hat. But I encourage you all to come out, and we'll definitely provide all of the relevant information where you can get tickets.
We're going to have very strong and stringent protocols to protect the safety of fans, staff, boxers, and your families, because we want you to go home to your family and not take back COVID or any other illness. So, we ask that you pay attention to the flyer. If you purchase tickets online, there's also disclaimers about safety protocols there as well. We're very serious about that. We want people to come out and have a great time, but we're promoting the safe return to professional boxing.
But on behalf of the Dirty Money Talk podcast, folks, over here, your girl, Steph Lover, I will hit you up later, Chad. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right, Dale, it was great meeting you. All right, thank you, guys. I really appreciate it, and you enjoy the rest of your evening.
You do the same. Talk soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. But we're not going to hold you guys. Again, I would like to thank our featured guest this week, Mr. Chad Clinton of CNC Entertainment. Y'all make sure y'all check him out. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. CNC_ENT is the handle. See you next week. Have a good one.